Okay, ready?
Yep.
You're going to get it right. First time.
Get what right?
I'll say hello, and then
Ready?
you say hello, and then
Hello,
the billowing
they-
hilltop.
Hello.
No.
Hello.
No. Oh, Christ,
And then the
that'll-
billowing hilltop.
We are the billowing hilltop. I hadn't worked anything.
You haven't done anything after
that, have you?
that.
You've only got 45 seconds.
What do we do? No. I know what we do. We
Dirty.
play tabletop role-playing games. Currently, we're playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition. We're playing The Outlaws of Alkenstar Adventure Path by Paizo. And there's hundreds of episodes of us playing D&D.
Yep.
We just sit around a table, playing games and having fun, and you can hear us wherever you're hearing this. Search Billowing Hilltop. We hope you join us.
Yay!
Thank you.
Welcome to Why We Roll,
a tabletop role-playing game design podcast by the Stillfleet Studio.
We're your hosts, Chris Pickett, creator of the historical fantasy game Dance Macabre.
And Wythe Marshall, creator of the political sci-fi game Stillfleet.
Through the show, we hope to amplify new creative voices.
We chat with different indie TTRPG designers, talking through a range of questions that are pertinent to many designers, players, and GMs.
We hope to showcase fresh and even challenging ideas about what makes imagination-based games so powerful.
Before we introduce today's guest, a reminder. If you enjoy this episode, please consider supporting the show and all of our games over at patreon.com/Stillfleet.
Okay, let's find out why we roll. All right, what's up, gamers? Welcome back to Why We Roll, the tabletop role-playing game chat show brought to you by the Stillfleet Studio, which is myself, Chris Pickett, and my wonderful co-host, as always,
Wythe Marshall, it's me.
Hey, it's you. Welcome back once again, everybody, including Wythe and myself. Tonight, we're very excited. We are joined by a very cool designer, sourcebook author, and wearer of many, many hats. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with Yamil Camacho. Let me know if I got the last name correct, Yamil. But yeah, welcome to Why We Roll. How's it going?
Yeah, no, you got it.
Hey.
Doing well. Yeah, Yamil Camacho. If you're a certain age, you'll think of the boxer. If you're a certain other age, you'll think of Mountain Dew Camacho, our president from Idiocracy. So either way, I don't know how I feel about either one of those characters, but yeah, it's good to be here.
Terry Crews seems pretty cool.
Yeah, Terry Crews, and my other last name is Cruz, Cruz. So
Oh my God.
looks like we're leaning to the Terry Crews a little bit.
Looks
more
like it's going to be a
than the boxer.
2028 presidential run.
Yes, you're here to kick off your presidential run, right? This is what we're- Look, somebody's got to.
Free TTRPGs for everybody.
No, thanks for making time, Yamil. It's great to spend more time and talk a little more depth. We met at a con, and I think one of the things we'll talk about is conventions and game conventions. But yeah, as we were just talking about before taping, I know you've done a lot of different work, so I'm excited to get into it. We do normally start. Well, first of all, I guess, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit in terms of games? Anything else you want to say that people should know other than your names, which are many and awesome, and you know.
So yeah, I'm Yamil. I'm based out of North Carolina, in the Durham area. I've worked for Goodman Games. I've done work for I've done 5e work, but not for Wizards. I was the editor for World of Trash last year, and we put out some short stories and three raccoons in a trench coat, which is a really fun game to have worked on. And then this year we kickstarted. Ahmed Suffety and I kickstarted Tales from the Tape Deck, the mixtape RPG that fits in a tape case.
Which is awesome and is a fun thing that I definitely want to ask more questions about.
Yeah, we're big fans of the cassette as a medium. I think I can safely say that for Stillfleet Studio.
Yeah.
I know I certainly am. We were chatting a little bit before we jumped on air. You know, you're going to be at a Dungeon Synth festival, and I feel like Tales from the Tape Deck would just fly off the shelf at a Dungeon Synth festival. They love their cassettes, man. They love that analog medium.
Yeah, absolutely. And while our game won't be out, but for that one, because it's in June, and we're going to be out in December, we're going to have the EP, the Tales from the Tape Deck EP release for them to enjoy. And in the meantime,
And Tales from the Tape Deck is still late pledging on Kickstarter right now. Is that correct? So, folks, if you are
yes,
watching
that's right.
right now, you can still go back the project, and probably still by the time that you hear this on the podcast, I think we'll put the link in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, we'll keep it open until end of June, I believe, is when we'll end the late pledges.
Right on.
Yeah, and folks should check out Tales from the Tape Deck now, and whenever you're listening to this, if it's not open for late pledges, you should just ask your friendly local game store. Yeah, just buy it. Just find out. Like you have Google, right? It's the 2020s. Let's get that shit. So with that, yeah, figure it out. Yamil, could you tell us a little before we get to Tales from the Tape Deck, which is like the main thing we were going to talk about? How'd you get into games in general? What's your background in games? What was your first love as a role playing gamer?
Oh man. So I started back in 2003 with third edition, or 2003. And I had like Dungeon magazine and Dragon magazine. Like those were like my gaming community was just reading all of that, figuring out what things came from before, um, like AD&D stuff, um, and like like I feel like I've always gravitated towards third party stuff, because back then it was like Green Ronin and eventually Pathfinder. So like that's how I first started, and then kind of came back. I want to say 2010, something like that. And was playing Pathfinder, playing fifth edition. The the indie boom that started around that time. Like I have, I mean, you can see it behind me. There's most of this is RPGs, if not like it's like Appendix N related stuff. So, oh yeah, and DCC was also around 2010, 20. Yeah, what I'm gonna say 2013. I think that's when the product itself came out.
And then was that like was DCC the big revelation that like you're like this is what I want essentially, or
Yeah, yeah. The magic system where you can either do a regular fireball, or a giant wall of flame comes over the horizon and envelops the whole town. So that aspect of it, the old school art, like I have a lot of Brad McDevitt, a lot of his art around. Basically, like I'm surrounded by maps of DCC and Forgotten Realms. Back there, it's the map for Weird Frontiers, which is the a third party offshoot of Dungeon Crawl Classics, where you're in a weird west where you're fighting like Cthulhu like monsters and chupacabras, and there's luchadors.
that's rad. That sounds
Yeah,
more
that sounds
interesting
awesome.
to me. Yeah, than typical Weird West. I feel like often Weird West forgets that like most of the West, like I don't know, speak Spanish. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm curious before we move ahead from this, just since you mentioned it, Yamil. Um, outside of the game stuff, what's in your appendix in? Like, what's on the shelf beside the gaming stuff that I'm just curious. Like, is it a lot of sword and sorcery? Is that kind of like the Goodman Games DCC draw, or is it get a little bit weirder from there?
Yeah, it's a little bit all over the place, because I'm also a big fan of magical realism from Latin America, like the Luis Borges and um, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, um, and lately I've been getting really into I'm originally from Puerto Rico, so I've been getting into a lot of the mythology and a lot of the history of the indigenous people of Puerto Rico, the Taino, and so that's been basically this year been really influential. But in terms of long term, it's got to be like old westerns. It's got to be like I said, the magical realism and just a lot of different styles of music. Like music has always been important to me, even before the whole Tales from the Tape Deck thing appeared. Like I was the person that would make a playlist for my campaign that was just for me to like be like, all right, this is the mood that I'm going for.
Yeah,
That's
no,
awesome.
that's really rad. We should definitely ask more questions about music as well. I was thinking, I think some of the things that got me into games were also like, why is this not in games, or like in homebrew, like playing D&D, like 2E or 3E, like bringing in stuff I liked. So like, why can't people in Planescape listen to like Wu-Tang? Like, it's not rules, but like they can go anywhere, right? They can go anywhere in time and space. So like, they presumably are all listening to Wu-Tang while doing like, magical political shit.
Presumably, of course.
Presumably, but no, but I'm curious to link some of those things together. Because you were saying about DCC, some specific things that you felt it sort of nailed and brought you into that world, and immediately started talking about the hacks, and that made me think back to like, again, that OSR moment and like learning that, oh, I can just change stuff, I can make my own versions. Do you remember what are some of the first things you did specifically as a designer, not just GMing or playing, but like moments where you're like, I'm gonna take this but make X more Y, or you know what I mean, like add the music I like or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, like homebrew specifically, I think I've mentioned it before, but my brother and I would change to Spanish, and that would be like whatever race he was playing. So if he was playing an elf, then that was the elven tongue. Like we would just switch to Spanish, or like dwarven or whatever. But in terms of design, one of the first things I worked on was for Gong Farmers. I did a so in luchador culture, the mask is very important. The mask is like heritage. The mask is your honor. It's very important. So I wrote an article about adding some rules around the mask, right? Where you have your mask versus mask, or mask versus hair matches, the lucha de apuestas, and so I wrote a little bit for that Weird Frontiers, gave some examples and put uh, some little Easter eggs for wrestling fans. Like there may or may not be an Undertaker mask in there. I know he didn't really have. He did have a mask briefly, like a Phantom of the Opera thing, but it was just like using the name, like calling him the Mortician or something like that. So yeah, that's probably one of my first ones. That was because I was encouraged by Dave Beatty, who created Weird Frontiers, to start writing, because I was doing editing before that. Like I just edited for uh, Peak City Publishing. I was doing prose, like science fiction and fantasy. Um, I did for Falstaff. I worked on a Edgar Allan Poe inspired anthology that came out a couple years ago, and then Dave was the one who inspired me to come to this side of publishing games and all that.
Yeah, that's rad. I love going back to just the simplicity of swapping out like quote unquote Elvish or Dwarven for like Spanish, and then using that as a way to like play your games. But then that also is very generative, because it's obviously going to bring ideas from a whole world, into a different. It's going to mash together those worlds. You know what I mean? As like a side effect. And I know similarly the masks, like people wear masks in games. They look cool. Spire famously has like a whole mask book, and I think it's cool that you were like, yeah, this is simple, something, bring together these two seemingly different elements, and then of course they're like, how different are they? It's power fantasies, all the way down. So,
Right.
that's rad.
Yeah. I really love the idea of like Latinate dwarves because I feel like they're always imagined as very like Germanic and very, like English, German, Danish, this kind of like Scandinavian kind of thing. But I love the idea of like a Latin speaking dwarf is really funny and interesting to me. I'm just being like, no, we're taking that. That's not
that to me isn't as weird. When I was first introduced to Lord of the Rings, like I was learning English, and I would be like an elf or a gnome, and I would think gnome like a lawn gnome, and I would think like an elf, like a Keebler elf. So they're all relatively like the same size.
Hell yeah.
So like it never like solidified until like I guess the movies did do that, like by having like Legolas and Gimli and all that. But for a while I was like, because I was reading ElfQuest too, so that kind
they're
of
all tiny, yeah.
gravitated it. Yeah, they're all tiny. Yeah.
Well, this is a thing actually that again is like before Tolkien, there wasn't a standard elf or standard dwarf, and I don't think that was Tolkien's point. To be fair to like a guy we'd beat up on as like an easy target, but like those movies are based, the books are based on legends, and his thing was just to make a coherent set of novels. And only now after like Gygax and everything, it's like there's very standardized like fantasy races, which is really weird.
Right.
The whole thing is weird talking about them. And it's almost more fun to go back to like, I think of like weird comics, like the way I feel like, Alan Moore or someone would handle this is just by literally having the elves all be different sizes, and it's just like, whatever, they're little people. What does that mean to you? How big are you? Okay, they're smaller than that.
Yeah.
I feel like you're not, I remember playing 5e over the pandemic with my wife, who now works with us and makes games, but she's from Thailand and was like, why are there so many different kinds of short people who are all basically the same? They're all just short people in this game. Like, what is the difference? Why do I need to know so many kinds? And I had no answer. I was like, I don't. Yeah.
Because we needed euphemisms as colonizers. How else?
Yeah, right. They're just stand-ins. They're subalterns. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they are subalterns for sure. Yeah, for sure. Oh boy, it's fun. Fantasy is so fun.
So fun. Well, we're fixing it, right? That's what this show's about. Hey, we're fixing it.
That's what
we're tuning in.
That's what we're trying. That's what we're trying. So, like moving forward a little bit in time, you've done some work for Goodman. You've done some work for some other folks. I'm curious about some of the things that you've designed yourself and kind of like for yourself. I know that you have these kind of 5e Kingdom of Keshinar kind of adventure supplements, and then there's also 3 raccoons in a trench coat. So I was curious, like what did the process look like writing for other folks, and then kind of moving into more of your own worlds or content, or however we want to kind of frame that.
Yeah. So let's see. So Kingdom of Keshinar, that was work for hire, and writing for them was pretty cool because they were working with Egyptologists. So I got to sit in at some of their like webinars or whatever conference presentations, and got to learn a lot about how active the Egyptology scene is, and how like there's new discoveries all the time about how far and how long ago it was, and how far it extended back. So with that, it was more of a, okay, like we get to pick and choose what is gameable and what we liked, or it was handed down to me of like, hey, take this. We want to showcase, because a lot of it was we were promoting at cons. So it was like, hey, what would be a good way to showcase the city? Because they had built the whole city in 3D. And I was like, well, you can have them like do like a city crawl where they can walk around and experience the different aspects of the city. So it was very much like writing via prompts, like that I was just told, hey, we want to showcase this and have this monster. And I would be like, okay, great, let's put it together. With World of Trash, like they also kind of wanted to showcase their world, where it's more the fantasy aspect of it, of the cute animals, and they're interacting with our trash. and that was we released that one in a Gen Con last year, and it did really well. But yeah, when it comes to writing for me, it's really about, like, always start with like a title, like a song title or something that like last year I did When the Sky Comes Looking for You, which is a Motorhead song, and turned it into uh, a weird Western adventure where you're on a Zeppelin that's going to hell, and you're trying to get out of it before you end up in hell. So it's just I like, and I also I love noir, like just noir films. So I feel like I always kind of stick a little bit of noir where you're not necessarily the heroes, like you're not sure if you're doing, because in that one you're working for a loan shark, a luchador loan shark, and so you're like, should I trust this guy? Should I not? Like, money is money, and then you end up in the Zeppelin, and you're like, what's going on here? Are we the good guys? Are we the bad guys? What's happening? So I always enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah, I love the question of, are we the good guys or are the bad guys? It's interesting you mentioned like writing for the environment, because that's such a fun way to think about things, where you do have the constraints basically of
Yeah,
having to work with somebody else's design. Because Tales from the Tape Deck, I mean, totally different, but it's still that constraint, right? You're working backward from like the format, the product, but also the
yeah,
culture of like tapes and
oh yeah,
what does a tape sort of imply? Like say, and that's a little different than the blank canvas of like my special game. It's like I have this kind of specific interaction in mind, and I have to work backward to give it a good story to fill it with stuff. So that's cool. I wonder, this is kind of random, but do you have any tips just as a writer for folks who are like, writing their own RPGs? Anything that you found over the years you've learned from all these different experiences, that's helped you, like, jumping in and writing adventures, working on different games?
yeah. I would say my biggest one is deadlines. Give yourself deadlines, even if they're fake deadlines. Like, make yourself a roadmap for the year or something. That way you have some structure, and that way it's something more tangible, right? Other, like, ideas are like water. They're shapeless. Like, you can be like, oh yeah, I want to do this. Oh, and it would be cool if I can also do this. And like, it's all an idea, it all fits, you think that it's the greatest thing, but then the moment that you write down those deadlines, make that map of like, hey, like, I'm gonna need to do this and this. And with Tales from the Tape Deck, there's original music, there's music from other bands. It all has to fit an hour, so you're going to run into a lot of unforeseen things. If you can prepare yourself with using those deadlines and using that structure, they'll help you a little bit, as you make way.
Yeah, definitely true. I think even like beyond deadlines, just reasonably chunking things out, like learning to break things
Yeah,
up, so it's not just
outlining.
like
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
outlining.
Outlining's not my number one. Like going from, oh, I have to go from 0 to 100, to just like, no, I have to go from 0 to 10 and then from
right.
11 to 20, etc. And what does that mean for each project? Of course, is going to be different.
Yeah. Mileage may vary. I was also just going to agree that having those deadlines, having those constraints is always helpful. And I mean, yeah, for me, it's always just accountability. So I've said it before on air, and I'll say it again. Very lucky to have Wythe and the other folks at Still Fleet Studio, because otherwise I would never get anything done. I'll blow past a deadline, fake or real, But if I have somebody there to tell me that I'm messing up, then it's a little bit easier. I am curious, so you just moving with the conversation, going into
Yeah.
Tales from the Tape Deck. I'm curious how that project kind of came about, how you got started on it. And then that falls into a few other things, like why the tape format specifically. Does that affect the play? Does it affect your design choices going into it? Yada, yada. We can get to all of that. But yeah, tell us about Tales of the Tape Deck. What is it? How does it play? And yeah, how did it come about?
Yeah. So what is it? It's a uh, highly portable TTRPG that has music as a playlist. So that's the elevator pitch. And the reason why we picked the format of the tape deck was here in Durham there's a place called the Scrap Exchange, and it's for artists to, like, teachers, artists, creatives. They can buy anything from like cloth to actual supplies to games to a bunch of different stuff. And I was there over a year ago, and they had just a barrel full of empty cassette cases. And I looked at them, and I have some of them somewhere. Um, but either way, I looked at them and I was like, oh, you could like stick a whole game in there, and that way you can just put it in your pocket, you can put it in your bag, whatever. And I messaged my co-writer on it, Ahmed Suffety, and he was like, "Let's do it. Like, let's just." And I was like, "Well, I hold on. Like, I don't know how. I don't even know if they could still print them, if they could print like a little zine that small." So we started doing all that research. We started play testing throughout Gen Con and Gary Con last year, and we had some games this year as well there. But yeah, it just, the format fit, and then all of a sudden, like, from there, we went into like, what if we actually put out music? And so we started working on that, and I used to be really active in the local music scene. Like, I DJ'd for people, and so I reached out to a bunch of the bands that I know, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll be on it. Like, we'll send you a song." And so it kind of grew from there. Um, and we wanted it to be 80s because it's kind of, that retro appeal of the cassette. Like, so everything's kind of written as if it were a product from the 80s, and a little bit of the vibe, especially with The Righteous Ride of the Radicals, which is our Mad Max adventure. That one leans into the hair metal, leans into the synths and all that of the 80s. And that's the one that, if you go to the late pledges, you'll see that we're actually putting out a cassette version, like with the music on both sides. Um, and that one's just a 200 copy, because that's what we could afford for the licensing for the bands. And you'll still get the music on like QR codes and things like that. So, and all of that stuff goes to the artists, the music, I mean. Um, but it was mostly, we wanted to bring that timer to gaming, right? And everywhere we've play tested it, we play tested it at bars, at cons, at lines at a con, um, people's basements, bar. I already said bar. Multiple bars, and and it's been a really, really good reception. Like, people vibe into it, and people starting to like. Another aspect of it is that you can interact with the music, so you can like pop the tape, and that means that you get a 3 minute in real life, 3 minute pause for the game, where you can all the players can discuss or plan or just heal or whatever they need for those 3 minutes. And that's one of the tape powers. Another one would be, they can choose to skip a song, to like fast forward, and that might be to escape a scenario. But the fast forward button, like as if it were a movie where it just keeps going, that means that the game master can place them in a different scenario, whether it's positive or negative. That's up to them. So we just wanted to have that fun interactivity with the playlist.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love how the physical format is informing how you're actually playing the game. And I love the idea of having real world timers in TTRPGs.
Right.
You see this a bit with I guess Shadow Dark kind of does this with the torch thing. What's the other game? 10 Candles. 10 Candles is another great example of that.
It's Huge influence.
Yeah. I mean, what do you like throughout playtesting and working on the game? Like, what have you found that having that timer or those again? I mean, we're just talking about like real world constraints. Like, what does that bring to the table? How do players interact with that, especially with the cassette as your kind of timing medium?
Yeah, so we found that it actually um, it motivates a bit of the old school play of like the player ability as opposed to the character's ability, where a lot of people started using their music knowledge to be like, oh, uh, if we choose this song, it's 5 minutes or 7 minutes long. We can use that one to turn the volume up. Everybody gets plus ones on all their rolls, and we're maximizing it because we're using it on a 7 minute song as opposed to like a 2 minute punk song or something like that. So we quickly noticed that people were doing that. People were because we wanted the game to be like you play it in 1 hour spurt or 2 hours and that's it. Um, so the players would start talking to me as the game master and asking me, "Hey, are you slowing us down on purpose? Like what he's asking us about all these choices and stuff. No, 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 we're on time. The music is going." So they were like in it. They were engaged. So that was another positive sign was just like people would be like, "Yeah, I'm enjoying this music, but that means that the clock is ticking."
I was picturing that moment, and I can imagine as a player, because I will say, like the idea of the light mattering in Shadow Dark,
Yeah.
is a cool idea, which I like converted for Danse Macabre for Unsunken Paris Below, the Paris Mega Dungeon. But it's as a GM, I still don't even use it myself. Like it's just another thing to
Yep.
keep track of. Whereas music that everyone is
Exactly.
hearing, it's less cognitive burden because I don't have to be like, wait, do you have a torch out? Wait, do you have a torch out? It's like,
Yeah.
and you can represent that different ways. But I like that music is something we can all passively sort of keep track of and feel the rhythm of, especially with famous songs, which again, it's kind of a world thing of like, usually I feel like many GMs have that impulse to keep it diegetic. So like if you're in D&D, people are playing tavern music, it's like flute, bard core, dwarf core, whatever core. And I think what's cool about a game that is saying, no, maybe, first of all, it could be modern, and second of all, what if you break that and use the other music more like a soundtrack in a movie, is you can create a lot of those emotions much, much more quickly, kind of like karaoke. There's songs that everyone is going to react to with a big, like I want to do the thing when this music is happening, right? I want to kill the goblin when I'm hyped to kill something, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really natural way to play around with the mechanic, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting too to have those emotional swells because it's going to be a little bit different song to song, of course, but you can also kind of like tell when a song is about to end. Like you can tell like, oh, we're in the third act of this song. Like we gotta hurry up what we're doing, or like like there's an interesting. It's interesting because it becomes less abstract than like the torch mechanic in Shadow Dark. And again, it's closer to kind of 10 candles where it's like, oh no, I can see the candles getting low.
Exactly.
I can see them going out. I can smell the smoke now that a couple have burnt out. So yeah, there's like an interesting like affective layer that comes with that where it's both like, I want to match my actions to the emotional moment in the song, but also like I know that this song is going to end soon.
Yep. And the song order, like one of the things that we're working on because we're halfway writing the adventures, and it's we don't know if it'll make it or not because we're going to test it. It's a shuffle button, so like it'll change the order of the playlist because you hear the playlist twice to build tension, so that you do know. Oh, last time we heard "Kickstart My Heart" or by Motley Crue, we knew that there was only a couple songs left. So we were like, well, what if it goes into shuffle, like, and nobody knows when it ends until like it ends. So like that's something we're gonna test out, but like there's just a lot of different things that keep popping up that help with that, like whether it's the tension of hearing the playlist twice or people's knowledge of the music, people being, like you guys said, just aware of it and not relying so much on the DM for keeping track of timers, which I love timers. I love timers in all my games. And when the sky came looking for you, it was a timer that like every so often when you would go outside of the Zeppelin, you were closer to the horizon and things were getting weirder. So I always love putting timers because it's just that the sense of urgency kind of makes people lock in. Because if it's like I love the beer and pretzels, just like DCC where you're just rolling dice and being silly, but the timer helps to keep that uh, keep it going. I guess like it's not like same thing with 10 candles and what's the Jenga Tower one? I always forget. Dread. Like that also counts as a big influence for Tales from the Tape Deck.
Yeah. No, I like anything, not just the mechanics. I mean, those are fun mechanical ideas. I personally don't see them being used all the time with adventure games because there's like setup
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff that like, especially also playing over Discord. It's
yeah,
like, okay, the GM's like removing the Jenga block for you. It's a little
yeah,
different than playing with your friends. But I think what you're talking about with the music and with some of these things about like the Zeppelin, every time you go to location X, the clock advances. It's like easy to keep track of.
exactly.
It's easy for everyone to get that cinematic. Like we're all used to movies showing us things three
Right.
times in a horror movie. And the third time is when the jump scare
Yep.
happens, or it doesn't happen, and then you're like, oh, we got to, and then no, then it's the scene right
Yeah.
after that. So I think it's really fun to kind of take those really simple tools that everyone, like you said, players know, they're familiar with, and then as a GM, it's a lot easier because you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not doing some complicated mechanic. You're just like, yeah, I'm going to bet I'm going to have three things. And after the third thing, then, the Zeppelin's on fire, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. And music, I mean, again, it's cool that you're able to play with that, with music you like, and also make new music for it and actually work with bands. I don't know if you want to say any more about that and kind of because I know there's an EP, so I'll drop the link to that as well, and we'll put it in the chat in the show notes. But how is it working with musicians, and can you talk a little about sort of how that's different than game design, obviously, right?
Yeah.
It's like figuring, which maybe Chris, you can say more about the OST for us, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's been like I'm used to it from I used to like run my own like music shows, and I had a residency at a venue in Raleigh where I would pick all the artists that were going to play that night, and and rounding them up back then was a lot harder than it was now. Now, I'm being like, hey, I want to showcase your song in a game. Like, I'm not trying to like the soundtrack, the 200 copies, like that's me making some money, but the we expect most people to stream it, then go run and get tape cassette players. Um, so it helped to have already like that network of folks that you could reach out to, and like it was pretty easy. That's why we put out the free EP. Actually, technically it comes out on Friday, but you can already listen to it on Bandcamp. It's just on Fridays when it's going to hit uh, Spotify and Apple Music and everything else. Um, and so those were three kind of like leftover songs from Righteous Ride of the Radicals that I had made, and um, they were mixed by Seth Hutchinson, who his band Weight Shift is featured on Righteous Right of the Radicals. I didn't know he did mixing and mastering, and we were talking because we know each other from Goodman Games, from being fans of Dungeon Crawl Classics. And he tells me that he's doing mixing, and I was like, "Are you available right now? Like, hey, like, do you want to mix? Um, do you want to mix some of the tracks that we have, the original ones?" And he's like, "Yeah." And it's been pretty quick to go back and forth with him. Um, there's one I'm gonna tease it. I'm not gonna say it, but there's one special guest that we're really excited about. He's a guitar player that like he's a virtuoso. Like he sent me his track like last week, and a few people, Ahmed, myself, and a few other people heard it, and we're like, we can just leave this alone and just put this track out. Like, we don't need to like mess it up with Yamil's production or something. But um, but I'm really excited for people to hear that one. Once the soundtrack itself will be out. And again, we're aiming for December for the for the release date for Tales from the Tape Deck.
Nice. Well, I can't wait to hear John Frusciante.
Yeah. No,
No?
no.
Okay. Well,
You know what? And I got not with John, but I got connected with this guitarist when I was at Page. Like, it was very much community, like just hanging out with people and someone being like, "Hey, so and so, they might like to be part of this. Like, this all sounds like a good idea." And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be cool." And they're like, "I know them." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Like, I'll reach out to them." And that's basically how it happened. Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask actually, did you meet Roderick Maxino at Page as well? I feel like y'all would get on like a house on fire.
We've had a couple guests, Adam Good
Yeah,
from
yeah. I
Stations
know them.
and Roderick Maxino, and they've been working on a game together about music that they talked about on their different episodes. But yeah, I mean, I think music and RPGs is something I love music, but I've never it's just not been part of my like game design praxis to be like, okay, then a song thing happens. But it seems very simple and elegant, and I think there's a lot of cool ideas coming out. So I definitely want to borrow, some of these ideas
Yeah.
going forward.
And
But yeah, Paige, this is all the shout out small cons. Maybe that's something you can talk about, Yamil, as well. Some of the cons you're going to, but I was gonna say we met I met you at Paige,
Yeah.
but we met Roderick, and I'd already spoken with Adam. But it was cool to like to see designers come together and shoot the shit. And I do think for newer designers or people looking to get into it, almost everyone in the indie modern side of RPGs that I have met, I will say, has been super nice. So I think cons are a great way to just go up and be like, hey, I read this thing you did. It's cool. Or even just like, that thing looks cool. What is it? And just have a good conversation. But
yeah,
sorry, Yamil, you were going to say something.
everybody in the RPG industry that I've met has been nice and supportive. And I think I heard somebody one time say, if there's 1,000 people in the RPG industry, only like 100 of them are full time, and so everybody knows kind of like the uh, to help each other, and that it's kind of like taking turns on those 100 seats. um, and yeah, like, local cons are also really good just because you're building community. You're there with like-minded folks, whether like here in North Carolina, there's not really, or in my side of North Carolina, there's not really like a gaming convention that kind of like dominates. Like, out in Asheville and Charlotte, there was Mace that became Mythic Con, and like that one is I think it's about 2,000 people in the Charlotte version, maybe more. I haven't been in a couple years, but um, yeah, like finding that community over here in Durham where I live. There's a lot of uh, like video game developers, so I've kind of like tacked on to their crew, being like, yeah, I'm the weird guy with the zine games and stuff like that. Like, um, so I go to their developer events, and when they're demoing their stuff for Steam, I'll be like, hey, like, you can go to itch.io and download my weird troika hack or whatever. um
Hell
and
yeah.
because a lot of them, the overlap is there. Same thing with science fiction and fantasy writers. Like, there's a lot of good conventions for them here, and I'll still show up and be like, I'm gonna talk about. I don't write sci-fi or fantasy unless you count these games, and people still want to hear about it. So I suggest just getting involved with them. You can help like volunteering is awesome. I've volunteered for many conventions, comic book conventions back when I was working in that space, and like people are happy to guide you, and people are like there's all sorts of mentorship programs or informal stuff, and it's always really wonderful to see like creatives. Like to me, that's why I go to cons. It's the energy I get from hanging out with other creatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of energizing to like hear what everyone's up to and just see how, like you said, it's like people are real and they have cool ideas, and right away they kind of start spitballing and, well, we got to work on something together. Or in our case, we're often like, come on our show, and then we're like, oh fuck, we're booked for like 6 months, which is
Good.
It's good, but
It's
you know,
good.
it's like, yeah, it is good. So we talked a little about Tales from the Tape Deck. That is the big project you're putting out now. You're still
Right.
working
Yeah.
on. Do you have other big projects, Emil, that you want to shout out? Anything cool you're working on that we have not brought up?
Or anything you want to just even tease, put out in the ether. We'll, yeah, you heard it here first.
I'm working on my first. I'm working on something with Plus One EXP. I'm excited to work with them. I've met them a couple times throughout like I think 2019 was when I first met some of them. So I'm excited to do that, but that's 2027. Let's see. I just put out my combination of magical realism and troika, so like my own troika hack, where it's called Armageddon Harbor Deluxe. It's kind of
Great name.
like a White Lotus riff, but like White Lotus in like an abandoned island. And that one is on itch. I think I put it for free.
Yeah. I just looked it up. I was like, I've got to cop this, and it indeed says free
Yeah.
right now. So you could paywall it
Yeah,
later, but if there's like the people watching right now, they gotta
Yeah.
go.
You gotta go right now.
They should pay you. They should tip.
No, that one's gonna stay like that. Unless
Nice.
like you want the physical, then you can buy the
Sure.
physical. Yeah, I think that's those are the ones that I can talk about right now. I'm doing work for Goodman Games. I'm always excited with the DCC side of stuff. Um, like it's a book of funnels. So everybody loves the 0 level funnels.
Everybody loves a funnel. Yeah, I was just going to find this. Here we go. This comment from Vex earlier. Plays DCC once. Why don't all my characters die? Which I thought was pretty brilliant. Pretty brilliant.
Here's a pro tip. My favorite thing is to name, because in a funnel you typically get 4 characters, and I always try to name them like Scooby, Shaggy, Velma. Like I always try to name them all in quartets. That way it adds a little bit of story for them.
Yeah, I like that. And then,
Right.
you have at least like a little narrative hook that you can attach onto once you're at the end of the funnel, instead of just being like, cool, I'm left with Glimglop, the goo farmer
Exactly.
or whatever,
Yeah, instead is like I finished off with Donatello.
Yeah. Only one of the 4 brothers survived.
It's always Raphael.
Yeah.
It's always
Oh, I mean,
Raphael.
that's true. He was the last Ronin or whatever
He's the
whatever
survivor.
Yeah,
their,
Last Ronin, yeah.
comic series was, where it's like the badass edgelord Ninja Turtle stuff.
You mean Cormac McCarthy's The Road, famously a biography of Donatello, the Ninja Turtle, after the end, after Krang wins?
Yeah, they're not eating. They're not cannibalizing babies. They're just eating turtle soup. And it's like a horrifying realization for him.
Oh man, I think Turtles in Time had that line,
Yeah.
right? It was like tonight we dine on turtle soup.
Yeah.
And that really
Ninja Turtles
sticks with
3
me.
was pretty messed up, really, when you think about it.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
Anthropomorphic. We've said it once. We've said it again. Anthropomorphic animals inherently weird. It gets weird for so many reasons. It's a whole series of books can be and probably have been written on why. Yamil, I wanted to ask about fiction. You said you write fiction and you're a big fan of magical realism, as am I. This is not technically a literature podcast, but still, I was just wondering if you read anything good lately, or if you have published volumes that people can find in addition to your RPG work, probably by going to your website, I'm guessing.
So I did editing for that. I didn't do any. Well, I did some writing. I don't know how available it is anymore, but like I did like a superhero noir short story about 10 years ago. I think that's probably one of the last things I wrote. But yeah, no, most of it will just is. It wasn't self-published. It was small publishers.
No, that's cool. I was just curious about fiction beyond games, and yeah, like I don't know if you've read anything good lately or anything that's an influence beyond. We've talked about like classic adventure stuff, but and like Borges, but anything else.
So I just read this little book. I ran into it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
A few rules for predicting the future by Octavia Butler.
nice.
It's small. It's like a little essay that she wrote, and that one feels very topical to now in
Yeah.
so many layers and so many different ways, like not just like politically but also like creatively, where we have things like, not to get too in the weeds with it, but like The Boys, the TV show, where like it kind of like went overboard, or we're like in like a weird post superhero thing in terms of our the media that we're being exposed to.
Our current
Like-
media,
like-
mythological media cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Well, and she talks about that in all her work about the need for new myths,
Exactly.
right? And that's, I think, the parable books are kind of about this. It's so funny, Emil. I almost bought that book on Saturday, and that's a great essay, and I love that this new edition with the space rainbow
Yeah.
kind of vibes is really beautiful. It's really beautiful, tiny hardback. And now I'm kicking myself I didn't, just because it's such a great book. But yeah, it's very timely. And I think Butler, it's not random, and it's not just normal fads that Butler has come back into American consciousness and is like staying. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like everyone is like discovering Butler because she was so far ahead of her
Oh, yeah.
time in terms of predicting what would happen and thinking about the need to think together, kind of critiques of capitalism, critiques of racialized culture in the United States, especially,
100%.
but also be a materialist and do science and learn about biology and astrophysics. And she wasn't a mystic.
Yeah.
And I think that, to me, as a scientist, is really important, that like I can learn from this person and respect that she's not telling me to like worship some frankly
Right.
made up entity. It's like, no, you can go out there and learn about the real world, and that includes learning about humans in it and respecting them. And I don't know, I'm just a huge Butler fan, so I'm really glad you said that. And yeah, I do encourage everyone to pick up that book. I'm gonna go do
And
that.
I'm reading
after this episode.
Dead Astronauts by Jeff Vandermeer, and Jeff Vandermeer is one of my
Nice.
favorite
Oh, nice.
authors.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I know
same.
from Annihilation. Oh, awesome.
I haven't read Dead Astronauts, though,
Yeah,
so
I
you gotta
haven't.
tell me if
I
it's-
haven't picked
Oh,
that
good.
up yet, quite yet either.
If it's a kind of weird sequel to Born, if you read Born, which is like a post-apocalyptic, for like weird Frankenstein story. It's a Jeff Vandermeer thing, so there's
Yeah.
layers and like
Yeah.
just environmental weirdness.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's a metaphor. Is it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes. No. Is it real?
No,
I don't know.
I love zone fiction. I love Annihilation, that series, especially the fact the books are so restrained and
Yeah.
weird. It's very impressive in a way that you can write that many pages. It's almost like Sam Beckett and like not explain.
Yeah.
And back to magical realism, it feels a little like magical realism in that you're like, wait, is this a science fiction, or is this is it fantasy just because I'm confused? But you're like, nothing that's happened is that fantastic, and it definitely feels alien coded. So anyway, I love the kind of play with genre that you have to be really good at it, I think, to do that. But
Well, I don't know about I'm because I'm about to say that I do it. So I don't know about that piece, if you have to be really
I'm sure
good
you're
or
good
not.
at it. I'm sure you're good.
But I really enjoy doing that, of not explaining stuff. like when you're on the Zeppelin for when the sky, like all the guards, I when I describe them, they always have different animal heads, but they just talk like cowboys. And and people are like, why the animal heads? And I was like, because it's supposed to be weird. Like you're headed to hell. Things aren't supposed to be making sense. Like I'm not here to explain why they
Shit
have like
sucks.
animal heads. Yeah, um, I also have started like I was on a different show on but either way I start to hate on canon. Like I just make your own canon, like you make
Yeah.
it your own. Whenever I release something, I want you to like with Tales from the Tape Deck, like there's no reason why like Stillfleet can take and apply your system, apply the timer, and there you go. That's your take on it. Like we made the D20 system aspect of it just because we had to. Um, the timer to me is the most crucial part of the entire game, just because like it's a new area for people to play with. Um,
Yeah.
but it's always like I want it to be that interaction, or at least get you to have a reaction to anything I write or anything I make, because I don't want it to be like I want it to have some spice or something. I don't know what to call it, but like that's why explaining things and having a
Yeah.
canon, like no, I don't care. Like
Yeah.
I,
You want
I
that
I'm
that zhuzh.
yeah, I want it to for you to turn it into something for you.
Mhm.
Like for you to have something
Yeah.
special. That way, it's not just rules or it's not just uh your name dropping or something like, oh,
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
this character is always is the Doctor Doom or whatever. Like I don't know. Like
No, I love that, and that's to your point. I think you're unpacking to some degree how do you forge real novelty in
Hmm.
fiction, which applies to games very much. Which is, there are tropes, and if you always lean on tropes, like you're saying, it's kind of it tends to be weak, right? People feel it's overly
yeah,
familiar. They're kind of bored
yeah,
already. Whereas if you do something like every time you see the guards, they're kind of normal guards in the Evil Zeppelin, but A, they have weird accents that are out of place, and B, the heads are always different. Well, now it's sort of dreamlike,
exactly.
and you do question, wait, why is that? And you begin to sort of fill that in yourself
Right.
as a player. You automatically go to like different fantastic science fictional explanations. And again, it sets a mood, it sets a tone. It's a little bit funny. It's in maybe a David Lynchy way,
Sure.
like
Yeah,
creepy. It's a little bit funny in a magical real way. It's a little bit dreamy. So I think that's a good example of being good at it and knowing and trusting yourself, right? Knowing that this will be memorable for one. It's fascinating or vivid. It's something that people will take with them, even if they don't remember everything. They're like, the Zeppelin was cool, the guards were cool, man, I gotta play that. And I feel like good games do that, right? Like Troika, the things people say
yeah,
about it. The things people say about any good game, they come down to a couple specifics because at the end of the day, of course, they're all just engines for having fun with our buds, telling weird stories, and a lot of it is interchangeable. A lot of them use the same types of moves, rolling to attack or something. So the things that are memorable about it, yeah, you want to, as a designer, like make it fresh every
Yeah.
time. So I appreciate, very much where you're going with that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I think something I think about a lot is just how powerful mystery can be. Just not
yeah,
having everything be over-explained, it can be really fun. And I think kind of a little bit to your point, Wythe, it also just invites a lot more collaboration from the player's side of things, right? It's like, well,
exactly.
I'm not going to take on the responsibility of explaining every single mechanic of this world to you. You just kind of have to accept it as what it is, and then you can fill in the blanks. Like you were saying, Wythe, you can kind of like fill in those weird spaces that get left behind, while also just making less fucking work for the GM, frankly. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and I think to the politics, I just to the politics of genre, the traditional left right divide of fantasy and sci-fi is that fantasy is trying to kind of recode a trad, like a frankly revanchist,
mhm.
universe over the real, and sci-fi is trying to force you to imagine, a more communized, like how could we possibly get to space? And if you do the math, it sort of does. I think it inherently breaks down every time you try to do the space capitalism. You end up with the Weyland-Yutani, dystopia.
yeah,
And so you sort of have to say, okay, if I actually didn't want to live in a dystopia, I have to go in the direction of communism. And I think what's interesting in magical realism is it was a response historically to oppression, to
yep,
tyranny, and it was a way to kind of tell stories that were taking pre Spanish colonial influence legends, and then a lot of sort of Spanish influence, and then bringing in that kind of high modern, like it's arch modernity, it's arch 20th century, just good writing, all the classics of magical realism. And I think that the stories are hard to like they're really hard to say exactly what they're saying, other than they always have this urge toward the human and to resist dictators. Dictators usually are the bad guys, in the genre. So I think it's fun to kind of play with that and bring in some of those tropes, because again, even if people aren't like big into literature, they might get the vibe, right? And I think the vibe is more and more people are being able to get the vibe without having to have actually read
100 Years of Solitude,
Marquez or someone. Yeah, which like I wish they would, but like I don't know how much Gen Z reads books, but I think they somehow still get the idea, and we have to do that work of translation, forward into time and into different media. So blah blah blah. It's a long-winded way of saying it all sounds cool to me. And Animal Heads, as Vex points out, they make every music video better. So why wouldn't they make your game better?
Dude, that is so true. Oh my god, yeah. Oh man. The music video for New Noise by Refused would be terrible if it didn't open with that Animal Head sequence.
What did the fox say?
Cut.
I mean,
it's a real deep cut for y'all.
It's all Animal Heads. Yamil, I want to make sure you have the actual last word. And Chris, you usually traditionally ask our final question. And I will then, I do want to plug our game jam, which actually touches on some of the things we're saying about translation and hacking games and, what is actually ownable or fun about, the novelty, the making part. But yeah, Yamil, do you have any last words or things you want to shout out that we've not gotten to?
I mean, I have a newsletter. If you liked my rants, it's not a lot of rants. It's more observations on a con I went to, or some of the new things I'm reading. And you get a wizard versus wizard RPG game that I wrote a couple years ago, and that's just free. Yeah. So joseyamil.com would be my website for that. And feel free to reach out to me at any social media. I'm always happy to help fellow creators or people that just want to know more about, like, they've never been to a convention. Like, somebody reached out to me about that recently, and being like, hey, what's best? What are the best things to pack? And I was like, comfy shoes and a beer. But no,
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah, that's great. Well, everyone check out joseyamil.com. We'll put in the chat and the show notes. Chris, do you want to ask the traditional final question? We covered a little bit of it just now, but
well, we've already answered the traditional final question. So yeah, go to where you can find Yamil's work, where you can support him, buy stuff, all the good things that make the clocks tick and pay the bills. Head over to the website. Like Wythe said, we'll have it in the show notes. Otherwise, Yamil, is there any other place? Are you Blue Sky, any socials or any other pluggables that you want to punch in before we head out?
Yeah. What is my Blue Sky? I'm on Blue Sky as something, probably Yamil.
Yes.
I'm on Instagram as Yamil Writes, and usually on those I'm just promoting either something new that's come out or a convention that I'm going to. Like, I'll be at MomoCon in Atlanta in a couple weeks, and then at the end of May I'll be at Con Carolinas in Charlotte and Appalachian Dungeon Fest.
That's right.
Come to Kentucky with me and listen to Dungeon Synth for 3 days.
Hell yeah, brother. It's time to siege the holler.
Yeah, I'm ready.
That's so much Dungeon Synth. Yeah, that would be really fun. Actually, that'd be really fun if I did not have a day job. I would just be like, yeah, let's just go to small cons. All these cons sound so rad. It makes me jealous every time someone's like, oh, I'm going to such and such con, and I'm like, I've never heard of such and such con. I bet it's great. People tend to be so nice, not just the other creators, but the players. I found the smaller cons, the players are so really I think sweet. Because they're markets where they're often starved. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They all know each other, and they're all like, "Can I make you a sandwich or something?" Like, I made cookies, and you're like,
"Do you need a ride back to your hotel?"
I'm not used to this. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that big ups to everybody at Running Gag who always helps us
Yeah.
out a lot because we don't have cars.
Oh.
And they're like, why did you come to the middle of nowhere in a snowstorm without a car?
Because we're idiots who live in big cities.
So on that note, Yamil, everyone should follow you, and we'll plug all your stuff again. One last plug before we call it is we're about to start the first ever Grit System Game Jam. So to the thing you said actually about translating something between games, converting it, that's something I would love it if you or someone you know would want to enter our game jam. We'd love that. We have a bunch of guest judges, we have prizes. We're not judging it, and it is really just a fun celebration. Everything is can be licensed with a third-party commercial-friendly license if you want. Obviously that's not again the goal, but we wanted to make sort of no barriers. So it's a game jam. It's running all summer long, and all of our games can be hacked, demade, re-upped, whatever the kids are saying. And I love that idea of just, your favorite mechanics, bringing them on in. So just throwing it out here. Hopefully remind me to say it, Chris, if I don't, every single time for the summer. It's the Grit System Game Jam on itch. And it's pretty easy to Google. It's those words on Google. All right. So go support Yamil and then consider entering our game jam. Any last words from any demakers, hackers, or re-uppers?
Stay leet, hacksaws. That's all I got. That's all I got.
I think it's called leap maxing now.
Leet maxing, yeah.
Oh, no. It is probably.
No, I got
probably.
leet mogged.
All right.
Wow, that's gonna
with that,
age.
I'm gonna go like a laundry max.
Beautifully. In 2 years, somebody will be listening to this episode.
I'm gonna
just be
hydrate
like,
max.
What the fuck? Oh, why?
Yeah, they'll unsubscribe it if they get to the 1 hour 7 minute mark. No, thank you so much, Yamil. We'd love to have you back on.
Thank you.
Thanks,
right.
everyone. Thanks, Chris,
you,
as always. Thanks, Vex.
Good
in the
night,
chat.
everybody.
Yeah. Bye, y'all. Nailed it.
Thanks for listening to Why We Roll.
Our theme music is by the brilliant Sam Tyndall and Arpline.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us on all social media at Stillfleet. You can find out more about Knots Macabre, Stillfleet, and all of our games over at stillfleet.com.
Hey there, Hugh from Podderation here, and if you like today's show, why not have a listen to the All Things Nintendo podcast? Hosted by Brian Shea, former director and Game Informer and lifelong games journalist, the show explores the ins and outs of gaming's oldest company and one of its biggest, featuring interviews, featuring reviews, featuring everything you want to know about the world of Nintendo. If you'd like to learn more, check out our website at podderation.com.